All right, good morning. How are you all doing this beautiful morning? Hope everyone is well. This sixth day of August, the year of our Lord 2024. Good to see people streaming in as always. Lots of familiar names that we're seeing here. People we see here each and every morning, as well as new people we've not seen here before. But karibuni sana. Hope you guys are well. John Bogo is my name. I'm a trader with Afriforex. Like we always say, Afriforex is a trading unit. It's not a one-man show, so we also do have Mitch. He is here. So in case you do have any questions, feel free to ask them both on the Q&A section and also on the chat box. Mitch will be getting back to you. But like we always say, we always do prefer that you do ask those questions on the Q&A section so that at least I can also end up having a look at them towards the tail end of this webinar. But as always, you don't really need to wait until the very end. You still can ask your questions even as the webinar does progress on. So let's jump straight into it. So we'll start off by looking at the watch list in comparison yesterday and today and see what we have. And you can see Monday, what the watch list was looking like moving into today. You can see a couple of changes on the Great British Pound, the US dollar, as well as on gold and silver. So we will be having a look at that. So we'll start off by looking at the ones that we did have yesterday that unfortunately did not make it to our watch list. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc. For this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was down within this region right here. I did point out it wasn't a really good time to look for yourselves because there was definitely some sort of a scenario within here. There was also that pushback by the buyers that you can't see them with that week. And you can't see that during the Frankfurt market open, price came back in. Of course, we're expecting to get some selling opportunities within there. The market did seem like it reacted. Must have been those sellers within that region there came back into the downside. And you can see that the market attempted to come to the downside. Of course, if you got any sales within here, you did need to manage your trade within here because you can see that during the US session from around 4:30 or thereabouts, the market had come back into the upside. And there were some GBP news events which did end up coming out, which did end up switching our bias. And that's the reason why we're going to be watching out to see whether we can get some buying opportunities on the Great British Pound. So unfortunately, the Great British Pound against the Swiss franc, not really a currency pair that we're going to be watching out for today. So the next one is the euro against the Great British Pound. So for this one, yesterday we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. Can't clearly see the three areas right there that I had pointed out. In the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So this was at around this time yesterday. So at around 9:10, price was somewhere within this region right here, pulled back in. Of course, we did need to see either the market breaking to the upside or coming back in somewhere as close as possible within here. If I do zoom in, you will see the market did technically almost come back in within there, but at least it did break to the upside. Can't see the pullback and the hold within there. You can see that the buys did end up working out just before the US session. And you can see that the pullbacks came in. But like I pointed out, there were some GBP news events that came out that did end up shifting the bias on the Great British Pound pairs. So the next one is the US dollar against the Canadian dollar. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities, and you can't see the three regions that I had pointed out. In the morning, when we're looking at the charts on this one, remember this spike had happened. So it's like the big boys had showed up. Then after that, they really disappeared. So because you can generally see that there were no other buying opportunities that were there. So we're really waiting to see what was going to happen. But remember that I did point out that in case the market did give us something, we did need to watch out for that high right there. But it seems that the big boys were possibly just playing some tricks on us because they just showed up and then after that completely disappeared. You don't know where to be seen for the remainder of the day. But unfortunately for us for today on that one, not really a currency pair that we're going to be watching out for today. So the next one is the Australian dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, we're trying to also see whether we could get some selling opportunities or some buying opportunities rather on the USD. And of course, selling the Australian dollar on this one. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this area right here. Because remember, this had happened. And remember, we had to do a lot of adjustments yesterday during the daily analysis session because the markets were really moving. So we were really expecting to see whether we could have gotten maybe a pullback to possibly end up attempting to see whether we could get sales. But you can't see that even on this one. It's like the big boys showed up and after that completely disappeared for the remainder of the day because you can't see big sellers within there. Neither can you see some sellers within that region. So Fortunately, not really a currency pair. We'll be trying to see whether we can get some trades on today. So the next one is the New Zealand dollar against the US dollar. So for this one, we're trying to also see whether we could have gotten some sells. Can't see that the market did spike down. Similar situation. Remember yesterday how the markets were behaving a bit funny in the morning. And we did end up having these three areas right here. Was expecting to see whether we could have gotten a pullback coming back in within there that we could have read. Can't see that the buyers came slicing through that region to the upside. The market came back in within this region. And you can't see that attempting to use these sellers up here as some sort of a safety net or some last resort in terms of selling opportunities. You can't see that the buyers came in within that region. The sellers did attempt to retaliate, and you can't see that the market did actually hold within this region. So this one was a bit technical in terms of getting the sell, but unfortunately we couldn't get the market coming back in all the way to within here, because it's like the sellers were showing up, then after that disappeared. During the Asian session, you can't see the market has done an even bigger probe, within this particular region right here. So unfortunately for us, for this one, not also a currency pair, we'll be trying to see whether we can get some trades. Indications are still showing that the New Zealand dollar and the Australian dollar are still possibly going to be showing weakness. So considering the fact that the USD could possibly be, showing us that maybe some weakness could also be coming in, we don't really want to jump in on that one because we could possibly end up moving sideways with it. So we're just going to be walking away from that one for today. So last but not least, we have the Great British Pound against the Japanese yen. So for this one, trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. Can see that the market came down, tapped within this area. So you can see that around 9, 10, price was somewhere within here. We wanted to see whether we could have gotten the pullback coming in. You can't see these sellers right here. They did react. Unfortunately, we couldn't get price coming back in all the way till within here. But you can see that there was some sort of an SNR somewhere within this area right here that the market did actually end up tapping twice before the market did move to the upside. But like we pointed out, remember the GPPs, the news events did end up coming out and showing some sort of strength coming in on those ones. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs. So right now we can end up having a look at a couple of screenshots that we did end up getting. So we'll start off with this one from Bravin. Bravin, if you're here, shout out to you. This is on silver. I know you love silver. And seems like you got a very, very good selling opportunity on this one, somewhere higher within this region. And the market really did end up paying you off quite well yesterday. So I can see that the market was moving down lower and lower. Stop loss quite far from where price is, really giving the market a lot of space. But I'm sure that you are monitoring closely, even as market was moving down. But this was really good in terms of where you got the entries. Good to see that you got the entries high up there. And of course, some very good money management. So shout out to you for that, Bravin, and of course, keep up the good work. So we also did get a screenshot from Dan Pickett. So this is on the UK 100. So I can't see that you got a buying opportunity on this one down within this area here, possibly timing the market when it was about to turn around. And I can't see that your stop loss is just below your point of entry, which is good. And I can't see that you're targeting somewhere higher up within this particular region, right? I don't know if the market did end up getting all the way till there. Not really some of the things we look at. But looking at how the sellers had come down, it was quite aggressive. But it's good to see that you had this level marked out. So I hope that maybe if the market came in within this region right here, because this seems like the seller was generally pushing the market down at this point in time, maybe you did possibly end up doing some money management within that region. But that's some good trading, although quite an aggressive entry. But it seems that you definitely know what you are doing, even just based on the fact that you did manage your trade once the market did start to move in your favor. So you also did get, this is a selling opportunity on the Great British Pound. So this is on the 3-minute time frame, just to give us more details. So it seems that you got a selling opportunity somewhere within here. Stop loss just within that particular region right there. The market came down, hopefully did manage down within these regions right here. But nonetheless, not too bad. Bit of an aggressive entry, I would say. But in terms of how you manage the situation, I would give you some points on that one. So shout out to you, Dan Pickett, for that. So last but not least, we do have George Shege. If you're here, shout out to you as well. So this is on gold. So it seems that you got a buying opportunity on gold. somewhere within this region right here, as the market was about to break above this region to the upside. Stop loss already above your point of entry once the market started to move up, and I can't see that you did manage your trade within this area, which is not a bad area to manage. Definitely seems like some sellers did actually push the market to the downside of that area, and I can't see that you're just targeting the next area, which is high up within that region right there. So this one is also not a bad trade. But of course, it's good to see that you did manage the situation quite well, George Shege. So shout out to George, Bravid, and also Dan Bickett for sending in your trades. We're more than happy to see your progress. And of course, keep up the good work. And of course, for the rest of the guys, I know we have lots of silent listeners who are watching from all over the place, which is okay. You're more than welcome to come to this space. But of course, if you can also send in a screenshot or two, so at least we can also know that you're doing well on the charts, we'd be more than happy. So our contact details are there on the chat box. And of course, in case you have issues with your trading, also feel free to reach out to us. We can see how best we can end up helping you. So shifting gears into matters today, for the guys who've come in late or joining us late, feel free to take a snapshot of what the watch list is going to be looking like today. So we're basically going to be looking for buying opportunities on the yen, the Great British Pound, the Swiss franc, and the euro. And we're going to mix and match that up with everything on the sell side. And of course, you can see the indices and the commodities are also planned out on the various sides. So feel free to take note of that. So we're going to start off with the yen pairs, mix and match them up with the sells, then move on to the Great British Pound, do the same, then the Swiss franc, then last but not least, we'll finish off with the euros and the indices and commodities. So we'll start off with the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. So in the morning, when we're looking at the charts at a time like this yesterday, price was down within this region, right? And I did point out that don't look for selling opportunities when price was down here. And you can see that the market did move up. You can see that it came back in, just tapped this region. Possibly did need to read that on a smaller time frame to get that sell to come down, but you can see that you did need to manage your trade down within here. In fact, this was more or less like the only sell yesterday, because after that, you can see that the markets did start their pullback coming in. So for this one, for today, let's see if we can get maybe a proper sell coming in, because, I mean, when we're looking for sells, we do expect the market to make lower lows and lower highs. So in as much as the market did end up pulling back in, I'm still going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities on this one. So hopefully you can end up taking note of those three areas. We have adjusted them accordingly. You can see that the market did actually end up reacting off this area. This was during the Asian session. And if you compare how the bars are coming up right now, a bit of a slowdown compared to the previous time when they did end up coming in within this region, which is a good sign for us, you know, in terms of looking for the selling opportunities. You don't want to be selling in the face of aggressive buyers. So at least that's a good sign for us to see that, you know, the markets are slowing down, but you generally also need to see a sign of the big sellers possibly coming back in, you know, somewhere within this region right here. If we get that and we get a struggle of the buyers, then we could possibly try and see whether we could get some sells. So just make sure that you watch out for this region here. And definitely in case the market does decide to come in low, and maybe, you know, the big boys, you know, continue with their momentum, because generally if you end up looking at the yen pairs, most of them have been coming down for the longest time, or quite an extended period of time. So this could possibly be some sort of a pullback, you know, inciting buyers to come in. But we're yet to see then after that, maybe you could find that the market could possibly end up resuming, you know, with its move to the downward side. So let's just keep our eyes on that. Let's see what happens with this one. But of course, the red SNR, if the market breaks above that region today, then that means that the selling opportunities for today will be null and void. So moving on into the next one, this is the New Zealand dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, also a kind of pair that we had yesterday, we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, the market had done this move coming down. And remember, we had to do a lot of adjustments on this kind of pair. So we mapped out this region right here. We're waiting to see whether we are going to get the market possibly coming back into the downside and possibly holding. It did seem like to some extent it was holding, but there were these buyers somewhere down within here. If we were to zoom in, you will see the buyers who are giving issues were definitely somewhere within this region right here. And you can see that the market really struggled to, you know, break beneath this region to the downside. And you can see that the buyers really pushed the market to the upside. The market came back in within here around 435. We can see that the market spiked down quite aggressively before the market took off to the upside. So almost something similar to what we've seen with the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we're also going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. The levels are more or less the same. In as much as the market has moved, it's not really moved far and beyond the areas that I had pointed out yesterday. So if you have taken note of them, then no need to take note of them again. But of course, if you hadn't, then feel free to take note of that. So these are the 3 areas we're going to be watching out for. Something almost similar to the Canadian dollar against the Japanese yen, especially considering the fact that the bars have come up aggressive, sellers have reacted. Buyers seem to be somehow slowing down, but also the sellers are also slowing down. So let's wait and see if we can possibly get these big sellers maybe showing up again. And hopefully we could possibly end up getting some good selling opportunities within that particular region right there. So do watch out for that. So the next one is the Australian dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we're watching out to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you can see the 3 areas that we were watching out for sells yesterday. You can see that the market was a bit choppy and messy within this region right here. But generally, of course, once the market broke above this region to the upside, there were no selling opportunities for us. And in the morning, when I'm looking at the charts, price was somewhere within this region right here. And we wanted to see whether we could have gotten the big sellers coming in within this region. Unfortunately, we just couldn't get the big sellers, showing up within here. And you can see that there was some sort of an SNR within here that did push the market up or to the upside. So unfortunately, this one didn't really give a proper sell. And you can see that right now the market is holding above that red SNR. So that tells you that for this one, you do need to be a bit patient. What you could end up doing, and also what us guys are going to do is, we'll have to wait for price to come back into the downside of this region. Can't see that the buyers are attempting to push up. But the good news is there's some sellers who are sitting within this region. Hopefully, if they can end up reacting and they push the market to the downside quite aggressively, then hopefully if they push the market back to the downside of this area, then get a hold, then at that point in time, I will definitely be trying to see whether I could get some selling opportunities on this one. But for right now, for as long as price is holding to the upside, there's really nothing much you should be doing because, like I pointed out, you never know how far the pullback could end up going. The good thing about it is the market has been coming down for an extended period of time. So you could find that maybe it just needs to pull back, it may be back in within these regions. And you see, at that point in time, if you're still attempting to get some selling opportunities, you could get stopped out a number of times, before the market actually makes the turnaround. So instead of chasing, the best thing is to possibly just end up waiting. But ideally, in terms of the yens, I know they look like some weakness is coming in. But generally, we could be heading to some sort of a recession. In fact, that's what the analysts are saying. Because if you look at the non-farm payroll numbers that came out on Friday, they're the lowest that, in terms of the NFP in a long time, which could signify that maybe the US economy is slowing down to some extent. And of course, it being the biggest economy in the world has a large effect on what happens on other things. And other currency pairs, and also due to the fact that the yen interest rates, for the first time in 15 years, they had, positive interest rates. Normally they usually have negative interest rates. So you can't see that that's the reason why the yens are generally coming down. So this could be some small type of intervention or maybe some sort of a game. We're thinking maybe the big boys could be playing, trying to get buyers to possibly come into the market so that they can potentially continue, to push the market to the downside. But a date that you need to have in mind is September 18th, because that's when the interest rate decisions for the US are going to be coming out. All eyes are going to be on what interventions the US is going to be making, to try and correct the situation. Because as it seems right now, the US could potentially be getting into a massive recession. So September 18th, we're really going to be watching to see what happens with the interest rate decisions. And I'm sure that traders and analysts across the world are also going to be watching out to see what happens. So moving on into the next yen pair and the last one, this is the US dollar against the Japanese yen. So for this one, we're going to be watching out to see whether we can get some sells. You can see that it looks like the rest of the yen pairs. Feels like we've analyzed the same chart. This is the 4th time. So I'm sure by now, you do get the drift of what will be happening on this one. But generally, let's wait and see if we can get the market coming back in, within this region. For as long as it's holding above that area, then unfortunately, it's off our case for today. So that's pretty much it for the yen pairs. So right now, we're going to move on to the Great British Pound pairs. So we'll start off with the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. For this one, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So these are the three areas that we have mapped out. In as much as the market seems like it's calmed down, but it's back in within a region of support. So we will be waiting to see whether we can get the buyers reacting off this region right here. Of course, if they can't and the market breaks to the downside, then that means that this particular currency pair will be off watch list for today. So do watch out for those three areas right there. Of course, hopefully we can get the market maybe spiking. Maybe it might need to do that. Maybe tap somewhere in within this region or maybe lower. Then hopefully the market and these buyers right here can actually end up maybe reacting. We could possibly find the market giving us a really good buying opportunity. So just watch out for this region and this region right here. And as much as the buyers have pushed the market all the way till the top, within these regions before, they can't do that again. But definitely it is your job as a trader to manage, as the market does continue to move in your favor. You can't just sit there and wait for the market to go all the way till the top. What if it doesn't? And you always have to have that at the back of your mind because, like we always point out, there are three scenarios when it comes to any trade. So you need to have that at the back of your mind. So the next one is the Great British Pound against the New Zealand dollar. New entrant on our watch list. We're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So hopefully you can take note of those three regions right there. So you can see that the buyers did make some sort of a turnaround of the market somewhere down within here. This was during the Asian session. So right now they're back in within this region to possibly challenge these sellers. We don't know whether these sellers are going to react. So the best thing I would personally do is wait and see what type of reaction we would end up getting within this region. If we get a sharp reaction and the market does actually end up holding beneath this region, then I will be waiting to see whether I could get the market possibly coming back in within here, because you never know. Maybe at that point in time, the market could possibly start to get into some sort of a range. And of course, the market being in a range, best area to look for buys is at the bottom of the range. But right now, since the market seems like it's technically holding above here, the other thing that would happen is possibly waiting to see if these sellers are unable to actually, push the market and, actually maintain it beneath this region to the downside. Then I think if we get something like that, we could possibly get some good buying opportunities somewhere within here to possibly end up coming up to challenge those guys sitting somewhere within that area. So let's wait and see what happens with that. But generally, those are the three areas we will be watching out for today. So the next one is the Great British Pound against the Australian dollar. So for this one, also a new entrant on our watch list. So this one is almost something similar to the Great British Pound against the Canadian dollar. So it's back in within a region of support. So we will be waiting to see whether we can get some buyers reacting of this particular region right here. You can see that the market did turn around somewhere within here. There were some interest rate decision news that did come out for the Australian dollar. I think it was around 7:30 or thereabouts, if I'm not wrong. But ideally, they did keep the interest rates the same. So we will be waiting to see what happens. There wasn't much of an effect at that point in time when the news event came in. We're actually expecting to see some fireworks with the team when we're looking at the charts at that point in time. But there was really nothing. But right now, you can see that the markets are attempting to make a move to the downside. But we'll just have to wait and see. Generally, we're back within a buyer's region, even within this area. So let's wait and see if we can get, maybe the buyers can react within here. Then we could get some good buys still within that region, or maybe till within that top SNR conservative area. So just watch out for that. But remember, if it breaks beneath the red SNR to the downside, then unfortunately there will be no trade for us. So moving on into the next Great British Pound pair. This is the Great British Pound against the US dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair that we had yesterday, but yesterday we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the three regions, or the four regions rather, that I had pointed out right there. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price had just come in within this area. You can see that the bars within here did actually push the market to the upside. Couldn't get anything to tell us to look for sales there. And also somewhere within this region, seems like the market did some sort of a probe within that area, came back in for a pullback before giving another sell to the downside. Could have been a bit of a tricky situation in terms of the read on this one, but you can see that the market was in a choppy mess within this particular region. So for this one for today, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get some buying opportunities. So hopefully you can end up taking note of these three areas right here. The market is back in within a region of support. So let's wait and see if we can possibly get the market giving us something within this area right here. Hopefully if we can get a reaction of the buyer within here, then we will definitely be trying to see whether we can get buys. But watch out for this region right here. You can see that the buyers came up aggressively yesterday, still couldn't break through of that region, right? Then you can see that they even came in a bit slower, definitely just couldn't make it through. So hopefully we can get the market giving us something here. We'll definitely be making another go at it in terms of breaking this area to the upside. So just make sure that you watch out for that. Remember the red SNR at the bottom, in case the market breaks beneath that to the downside, then unfortunately, at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So make sure that you watch out for that. And also remember, just a quick heads up, in terms of the fundamentals, I know there's already been Euro, which came out a couple of minutes ago, which is positive. So we'll be trying to see whether we can get some buys on the Euro. But there's some GBP news events that are going to be coming out at around 11:30. So we'll let you know in case the watch list does end up making a change, and let's say the Great British Pound does end up shifting to the sell side, then we'll definitely let you know on the Telegram channel. So just make sure that you do join. There should be a link there in the chat box, but I'm sure that most of you are already in that group. But in case you're not, there should be a link in the chat box that you should be able to join. For guys who are watching on the social media platforms, there should be a link that has all our resources in the video description. If you follow that, you should find the link that should guide you to the Telegram channel. So moving on into the Swiss franc pairs, and we're going to mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the Canadian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, yesterday, also a currency pair that we had, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. Can't see the three areas that I had pointed out somewhere within this area right here, which are more or less the same region or regions that we do have today. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here, pulled back in within this area right here. You can see the slowdown of the buyers before it did happen, before the sellers did come in. Unfortunately, price couldn't get exactly all the way to within here. But remember, like we always point out, SNR, it's not a price, it's a zone or an area. So that's the reason why we always do end up highlighting this region. Sometimes the markets do end up coming shy of the exact price that we do have. Of course, there's a particular price that we're looking at. That's the reason why we have the SNRs. But in terms of the area, SNR is an area. It's not really an exact price. So for this one, you can see that it just came shy of that region, bounced up to the upside, came in. You can see that it broke to the upside of this area. To some extent, it's like the market pulled back in. Don't know if it would have been able to grab that sell. It really wasn't the clearest of them. And you can see that it's like some sort of a retest of this area after the market broke to the upside to come in within this region right here. So right now, we're going to be waiting to see whether we can get some sells coming in. If we end up getting that, then personally, I will be trying to see whether I can get some sells within there. I could target all the way down within here, but I'll definitely be watching out to see what happens, somewhere within this particular region right here. So if you want to follow that advice, then that would be great. But also remember, in case the market breaks above the red SNR, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade in terms of looking for sells, neither in terms of looking for the buys. Because remember that if you don't have a good reason as to why you're taking a trade, you're just taking a trade because the market's showing, let's say, for example, if it's green and you're just jumping in on buys, then you don't have a proper reason as to why you're taking those trades, then you could easily end up signing up for trouble. So just make sure that you have a good reason if you're going to be jumping in on buys. So moving on into the next one. This is the New Zealand dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, also a currency pair that we did have, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. You can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price had just come down aggressively all the way down till here. I did point out we're waiting to see whether we could get a pullback within here. Unfortunately, we couldn't get anything there. The market came back in all the way till within this region right here. And you can see that at around 3, the market did come down. Could have been a good selling opportunity, but you definitely did need to manage within that area. Unfortunately, we couldn't get down all the way till within that region right there. And you can see that after that, the market did turn around. And during the Asian session, you can see that it did come in to actually tap in within this area right here, which is where I think the sellers on the bigger time frame are possibly sitting. So that's the reason why we have these regions like this. So do watch out for these 3 areas right here. It's not a really good time in terms of looking for the sells right now. Let's see if the market can come back in as close as possible within here. This is the best area to possibly look for the selling opportunities. Right now, the market could easily bounce off this area. You can see that the buyers are sitting within this region. So by hitting sells within here, might not really be good. You could get into a head-on collision with the buyers. They're not some small buyers. You can see that they push the market to the upside. So it's either the market breaks to the downside of this region, then hopefully after that, then I think we could possibly end up looking for some sells to come down to within this area. Or if the buyers do end up reacting, let's see if we can get the market coming back in as close as possible as that region at the top right there. So moving on into the next one, this is the Australian dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. Can't clearly see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. This one was in some sort of a choppy mess within here. In terms of getting the sales, it wasn't the clearest of opportunities. That one, I'll be honest with you. And you can see that the market came down, came back in within here, held just within that area. Seemed like the market came to the downside, but couldn't hold because, definitely seems that the sellers came into a head-on collision with these buyers who are sitting here. And after that, you can see that the market did push to the upside. So this one wasn't the clearest of them all. So let's see if today we'll possibly end up getting something clear. So we've adjusted the areas accordingly. And these are the three regions that we will be watching out for. So let's see if we can get possibly a sign of the big sellers within this area. And hopefully if that happens, then maybe you could find that these sellers might actually end up having another go at it in terms of pushing the market to the downside. So let's see what happens. But of course, remember, if the market continues to hold above that region to the upside, there'll be no trade for us. So what I'll do is I'll set an alert there. If I do get that alert, then I'll definitely come in and see what's happening on that one. And if I like what I see, then I'll definitely try and see whether I can get a selling opportunity on that one. So the next one is the US dollar against the Swiss franc. So for this one, this is a new entrant on our watch list. We will be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. So can hopefully end up taking note of these three regions right here. So right now you can see that the market is just coming back in within there. Let's see if we can get the market breaking to the downside of that area right there. If that happens, then maybe you could find that these sellers might actually end up attempting to push the market to the downside. So for this one, what I'm going to do is I'm also going to set an alert somewhere within there. So what I want to see is the aggression of the sellers coming down, hopefully taking out these buyers, maybe some sort of a struggle within here before executing some sales, maybe even to come down all the way till within this area. If I can't get that there, then I'm possibly going to be waiting to see whether I can get maybe the sellers reacting somewhere within here if the buyers do actually push the market to the upside. Bear in mind that we're just about to get into the London market open at 10. So that means that you could easily find that the London big boys, especially considering the fact that we're holding above here, could also maybe push the market to the upside. If that happens, then that means that it's better to wait and see what happens within here. Maybe at around 3, 4:30, during the US session open, you could find that maybe the US big boys might be the ones who might be interested in actually pushing that market down. And hopefully if that's the case, then we'll definitely try to see whether we can join them in on that. So that's pretty much it for the Swiss franc pairs. So we're going to move on to the last set of currency pairs, which are the euro pairs. Mix and match them up with everything on the sell side. So we'll start off with the euro against the Canadian dollar. So this is also a currency pair that we had yesterday. So if I just zoom in within this particular region to get more context of what happened. So for this one, we're watching out for buying opportunities. You can see in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, the market had just attempted to break above that region to the upside, came back in within here. Can see that the market bounced off this area at around the London market open at around 10 or thereabout. Could have been a bit hard to grab that trade, but you can see that the market went to the upside, came back in within here during the US session open. I mean, if you did attempt buys within here, just reading the mini scale of things, especially on the smaller time frame, and you got buys there, you definitely did need to manage your buys within here. Remember, like we always point out, taking note of the highest part the market has gotten high up until is very important, because if the market has reacted off there before, especially when it does some sort of breakouts, either to the upside or to the downside, you need to mark that area. If you just end up taking a buy and you target as far as you can and you ignore this region, like this is a very good example of that, then you definitely can see that the sellers will definitely give you issues. And sometimes the markets are very unforgiving. You only get one chance to manage, you mismanage the situation, and unfortunately, it's game over for you. So for this one for today, these are the three areas that we're going to be watching out for. Right now, this level right here is reacting. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in within here. If we can get a nice slowdown of the sellers and hopefully the buyers start to show up, then we could look for some buying opportunities within there, making sure that we manage our trades within there, even if you could be targeting higher within that region right there. So hopefully you can end up taking note of that. So the next one is the euro against the New Zealand dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair we had yesterday, watching out for buys. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price was somewhere within here. So it had just done this spike to the upside, came back in. I did point out that you could possibly time and see whether you could get some buys here. You didn't need to manage your trade. somewhere within this area right here. Consider the market tapped in within that area, came back in once again at around 430 or thereabouts, tempted to go up, unfortunately couldn't go up higher. And definitely that may be meant to a certain extent that the buyers did need a much better price. And you can see that the market came back in, tapped within that region right there. And during the Asian session, you can see that the market has somehow started to turn around. So for this one, we will be waiting to see what happens. You could find that maybe the market could come back in within here. The good thing about it is at least we're looking for buying opportunities on the euro, and the fundamentals have just come out. So we'll be waiting to see what the London big boys do actually end up doing. But let's see if we can get the market lifting off this area. We can get the price coming in as close as possible within that region. I think some good buying opportunities could be somewhere within there. Of course, if you're really good at reading the charts and the story of what's going on, you could go down to a smaller time frame, maybe get some buys, maybe once price does break this region to the upside. And of course, just make sure that you do manage your trade, somewhere within that area right there. But I think the best buy could still be hiding somewhere within this region right here. So let's just see what ends up happening on that one. And of course, remember to watch out for the times, like we always do point out, 10, 3, and 4:30. So moving on into the next one, this is the euro against the Australian dollar. So for this one, also a currency pair we had yesterday, trying to see whether we could get some buys. The market had spiked up to the upside. We wanted to see what was going to happen within here. And it was a bit of a choppy mess that was going on within here. You can see that the buyers somehow seemed like they showed up. But unfortunately, it's like there wasn't too much range to the upside. In as much as maybe you could have targeted the spike all the way at the top right there. But you can see that the market really struggled within this region. The sellers pushed the market to the downside. And after that, you can see that the market has been coming down lower. So for this one, I think since yesterday, early morning, after the buyers did actually end up showing up, they disappeared on us. Something similar with what we've seen with the USD pairs. So we'll be trying to see whether they can possibly show up today. So the areas are more or less the same, in as much as the market has moved, but it's not really moved far and beyond, the areas that we were watching out for yesterday. So we'll be trying to see whether we can get, some sellers possibly inciting some buyers within here. Maybe the market might attempt to break this region to the downside, but we'll be having a keen eye to see what happens. If the buyers can possibly react, and it's these buyers right here, maybe you could possibly find the market maybe lifting all the way to the top there, but you definitely need to manage your trade within that mid area right there, the semi-aggressive conservative region. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But remember that in the unfortunate turn of events that the market breaks and holds beneath the red SNR, then unfortunately at that point in time, there will be no trade for us. So last but not least, for the currency pairs, we do have the euro against the US dollar. So for this one, new entrant on our watch list, we will be trying to see whether we can get some buys. The market is back within a buyer's region. That's good news. The bad news is that we haven't yet seen the buyers. So we will have to wait and see whether we can get some buyers coming in within here. They have come in from here before. They can't do that again. So we will be waiting to see whether we can get that happening. Of course, if we get the market or the trade somewhere within here, then definitely you could target somewhere within here. It's about 30 pips or so. Do some money management within there. Hopefully, if we get a nice breach to the upside and a pullback, you could possibly end up trying to see whether you could get some more buying opportunities within there, maybe targeting high up within that area. So watch out for that, but also remember that the sellers can possibly also continue pushing the market down lower, especially if the buyers don't show up within that region, and you could easily find the market coming back in within this region. So you could find that maybe during the London session, you could be on the pullback. Then maybe at around 3, 4:30, you could find the market back in within here for the proper buy to lift to the upside. So that's pretty much it in terms of the currency pairs. So hopefully you guys have taken note of what the game plan is in terms of all the currency pairs that we're going to be watching out for today. So we can move on to the indices and the commodities. Can see that there's been a bit of a shift. The Nasdaq has gone to the buy side. Gold and silver have joined the sell side. So let's see what they look like today. So starting off with the NAS 100. So for this one yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some selling opportunities. You can see the 3 regions right there that I have pointed out. So in the morning, this one did actually come in quite aggressively all the way down to within this region. We're trying to see whether we could have gotten the market pulling back in within here. Consider the market did do some sort of a probe within there, held to the downside. Market came in. I mean, if you got a sell there, you definitely did need to manage your trade within here. Because unfortunately, you can't see that when 4:30 came around the corner, price was back in within some sort of a buyer's region. So it's not really surprising to see that the market did actually end up reacting off that region to the upside quite aggressively. But definitely, we got the sells there. You definitely did need to manage your trade within there. You can't see that the market came up. Unfortunately, we couldn't get any other sell. And of course, once the market broke this region to the upside, then that meant that we were officially in a buyer's zone. So for this one for today, we're going to be trying to see whether we can get buys. But also, let me say for now, because remember that we're fully technical, when it comes to the NAS 100, the US 30, and also gold and silver. So for as long as we're holding above the red SNR, the bars should be to look for buying opportunities. Let's see if we can get the market coming back in as close as possible within here. Possibly could get some good buys coming up till within that area right there. So watch out for that. And also, remember that in case the sellers do continue to be adamant and push the market all the way back in within this area, then we could possibly still time to try and see whether we could get some buying opportunities within this region right here. So do watch out for that. But remember that, of course, if we do end up getting some selling opportunities, it's just the awareness of where we are based on the situation of the charts right now on the 15. It's a counter. It doesn't mean that it's not going to work. But as long as you have the awareness, even as you're taking the trade, then that's okay. Unfortunately, what normally happens with most people is they take trades, but they're not aware that they're going against the flow. So you take a trade, you're stuck there for hours, and you're wondering, why is it that the markets are not really moving? Only for you to actually end up getting stopped out and realizing that you're actually in the wrong direction. So for as long as you have that awareness, then you should be fine and you should be good to go. So the next one is the Dow Jones. So for this one, yesterday, we're trying to see whether we could have gotten some sells. And you can see the three regions right there that I had pointed out. And in the morning, when we're looking at the charts, price had just broken this region to the downside. And I had talked about maybe waiting for a pullback to come back in within here. You can see that the market just breached and just held within that area. And after that, it just continued to move to the downside. It wasn't really giving much of pullbacks until much later on. This was at around 7:30 or thereabout. A pullback that you can visually read on the 15-minute time frame. Unless you are reading these mini pullbacks on the smaller time frame, maybe like on the 3-minute or on the 1-minute. But in terms of looking at it on the 15, the only visible pullback we could possibly end up seeing yesterday was this one right here. And of course, this one, which has run into today, into the Asian session and also during the Frankfurt session. So for this one, the good news is we're within a seller's region, which is good. We just need to see some buyers showing up. Some sellers showing up within here, because you can see that the sellers are sitting within there, which is good. So hopefully we can get a sign of the big sellers and the buyers who are pushing up, getting taken out, and maybe a struggle of the buyers within this area right here. So what I would do is I would possibly set an alert within here. Wait and see what happens, because the buyers who are pushing up seem to be somewhere within this region right here, because you could easily end up hitting a sell when the market comes back in within this area, which is okay. But when the market comes down, you'll still have to face this buyer right here. And then what is possibly going to happen is you might end up getting taken on a roller coaster ride within that region, maybe even all through the London session, waiting for the US session for the market to actually break. And by that point in time, you'll possibly be mentally tired of that trade. So just make sure that you watch out for that. But also remember that in case the market does actually end up moving to the upside, challenging these sellers right here, and the market actually holds above here, you could find the market coming back in all the way till within, then you could find some proper sales, happening off that region at the top. So just make sure that you also do watch out for that. So moving on into the next one, this is silver. Now, for this one yesterday, we're initially timing to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities, but remember that there was caution on this one, considering the fact that when you're looking at the charts, the market was just coming down within this region. And you can see that yesterday at a time like this, price was somewhere within here. I did point out that you did need to watch out for these buyers right here. And you can see that they did react. This was during the London market open, but you can see that the sellers or this region right here did actually end up reacting and pushing the market to the downside. And of course, once that did end up happening, we were officially in a seller zone. And you can see that the market did really end up coming down quite aggressively. So for this one, for today, we're still going to be trying to see whether we can get some selling opportunities. The reason why the levels look a bit weird is also because we are trying to incorporate the story of what's happening on the bigger time frame. Because this one, the levels might actually end up having to be 4, because you can see that the market has really moved quite an extended, distance of this region right here, coming down all the way till within this area right here. So for this one, we will technically end up having 4 levels. So there's definitely this region at the bottom right here. In terms of looking for sales, don't look for sales now. You can see that the sellers came in quite aggressively. The buyers did push them back to the upside of this region right here. That could happen again. And especially if the market can't break this region to the downside, then that means that the market could possibly end up going for a much better price. I mean, at that point in time, if you want to look for a quick counter and a smart counter, you definitely can end up doing that. But just having the awareness that overall we're still in sellers, you never really know how far the pullback would come in. But at least we do have these 4 regions right here that we do have, potential areas of how far the pullback could come in. Already the market has tapped back in within this region right here. And it's not uncommon because when the market broke to the downside of this area, you can see that the nearest SNR, especially when you're looking at it on the bigger time frame, is definitely within this region. So it's not surprising to see that the market has come back in within there. But if that price, and if the sellers took their orders there, they still can't get past this region to the downside, it means that the market might possibly end up needing a much better price. And that much better price could be somewhere within this range right here. So that's the reason why we have that. But also remember, I mean, we are trying to pick the markets, with our brains, but the market has its own, mind and knows exactly what it wants to do. So you could find that maybe the market might not even come all the way to within there. It might just come in somewhere within here, maybe just get prices just higher than this, slightly higher, maybe even somewhere within these regions right there. And you could find that the market could easily end up turning around. And after that, you could find the market coming down. So let's just wait and see what happens. But at least we do have the 4 levels. We're ready. In case the markets do end up showing us something of interest, then at least we're ready, within this more or less 4 areas right there. And of course, if it does break to the downside and hold below that region to the downside, then we'll definitely keep up with the selling opportunities. So last but not least, we do have gold, or like Mitch likes to call it, the fan favorite. So for this one, yesterday we were trying to see whether we could have gotten some buying opportunities. Of course, based on the fact that we're holding above this region right here. And you can't see the market did actually bounce off this area. This was during the Asian session. The market came in within that region. During this session yesterday, at a time like this, price was somewhere within this region right here. And you can see that we had talked about, let's wait and see if we can possibly get the market breaking this region to the downside. Although when we're looking at it on the bigger time frame, there were already some signs that could have told us that the market was about to turn. When the market was coming up here, you can see that these sellers did actually push the market to the downside quite aggressively, taking out the buyers at various levels quite fast. And after that, you can see that the market got into some sort of a struggle within this region right here. But of course, it's always best to wait for that confirmation before you jump in on the trades. But of course, if you're trying to swing it, I mean, in terms of looking for the selling opportunities, those ones were more or less what we should have gone with. But in terms of the 15, we had to wait for a bit more confirmation. And of course, once the market broke to the downside, unfortunately, there wasn't much in terms of the pullbacks. Maybe unless you're reading this, on a smaller time frame to really try and see the story of what was going on. But you can see that the market broke to the downside quite aggressively, came back in, and right now is when the market has given us some sort of a pullback, coming back in within this region right here. So for this one, these are the 3 areas that we're going to be watching out for today. So hopefully you can end up taking note of them. Right now, the market has pulled back in within that semi-aggressive conservative region. But you can see that the sellers somehow are attempting to possibly start coming in, but you can see that there's this minus SNR within here. So some sort of a small range, because I mean these buyers right here have stepped up within this region right here. So there's definitely a fight that's going on within here. So you could find that hopefully, let's keep our fingers crossed. If the market comes in somewhere as close as possible within here, and hopefully we see a slowdown of the buyers and the sellers still adamant, then at that point in time, personally, we'll try and see whether I could get a sell. But the one thing that I definitely have to have at the back of my mind is, I mean, if you get the market coming in within there and the market comes down and you can't get past this region right here, at that point in time, maybe it might be better to scratch that trade, because it could possibly end up bouncing off this region to the upside, and you could find the market coming back in within there. But ideally, if we do get the market coming down and actually breaking this region to the downside quite aggressively, that's what I would love to see. Because I mean, when the big boys come in, they don't come in with whispers. They come in with a large, shout. So if that ends up being the case, they should easily be able to take out this region to the downside. If that can't happen, then our big boy definitely has a problem. They need to regroup. And that means regrouping means that they will possibly need to go for a much better price. And if that's the case, you definitely need to be out of the way, because if you're still sitting there, you could easily end up getting stopped out. So also have that at the back of your mind. So I guess that's pretty much it in terms of everything. So I hope guys have taken note of everything that we're going to be watching out for and what the game plan is going to be looking like today. So I think we can end up looking at any questions on the Q&A. So I see Alan Rono there. You're saying, hi, John, thanks. Karibu sana. Always good to see you here, Alan Rono. Hope you're doing well on the charts and in everything else. I see Caroline Moneki here saying, when identifying a trend of any pair, does one look at how it started on that particular day? What time frame is best when identifying a trend for a particular day? So, good question. And I think you had also asked that to some extent yesterday. Now, the time frames are different. You also need to figure out what time frames you're trading. And the way us guys normally look at it is we usually bunch time frames in twos. So if you're looking at the 4 hour, then ideally you should be focusing more on the 1 hour in terms of your entry. If you're looking at the 15 minutes like we are, we focus more on the 3 minutes in terms of entry. And of course, if you're looking at the 3 minutes, now of course that there you're going into scalping, then that means that you're looking more into the 1 minute time frame in terms of entry. And of course, when you end up going to the top scale of things, when you're looking at the daily, then you're also looking at the H4 time frame. So the time frames are always in twos. So sometimes then the biggest mistake guys normally make is jumping all the way from the daily to the 3 minute. Well, somehow, yes, you could end up working things out, but generally I don't really think that's how things should normally work. And it doesn't normally end up working too well for guys. So if, let's say, for example, we're looking at the 15-minute time frame, for us, maybe if we are just to go up one time frame, we can end up figuring out exactly what's going on with this one. And that's the reason why you find that when you're doing this analysis sessions, in as much as yes, the 15 minutes is our trading time frame, the 3 minutes is our precision time frame. Like we really want to get the nitty-gritty of what's going on when the market comes in within areas of interest and look at it of the 3 minute time frame. But generally, we're more or less playing within the 1 hour time frame because in as much as we're looking at the 15, we're seeing more detail of what's happening within the day. We're intraday traders, so we definitely just want to see a bit more detail of what's happening. Like, for example, during the London session, also during the US session and the Asian session and, the Frankfurt session. I mean, if you're going to look at it like that. But ideally, it's the 1 hour that you should be looking at. So for as long as you can get a picture of what's going on, like I pointed out yesterday, it's within where the price is. So you see, like, for example, for this one, the market is definitely trending. Why? If you end up looking at when the market turned around within this region right here, right now, price is down within this area right here, which means that all this other information of what the market was doing previously is not really beneficial to us. The only way it's beneficial to us is based on the levels, because definitely the buyers have reacted off here before, and you can see somewhere within here and somewhere within here. You can't just expect that the market will just blast through that region to the downside. But in terms of the structure, you can generally see that the market is starting to trend, because you can see that the market broke to the downside of this area right here, pulled back in, gave some sort of a retest, within that region right there, broke to the downside, and once again you can see that the market has come back into the downside. So that tells you that within this area right here that we're looking at, the market has started trending, regardless of what else the market has been doing in the past. And that's the reason why I'm saying it's always a matter of, if you can possibly end up looking at where the price is, try and figure out the story moving back. Look at this one, for example. Regardless of what the market was doing, all this at the time right here could have been in a trend coming down, got into some sort of a range, within this region right here, broke to the downside, came back in, gave some sort of a retest within that particular region right there. And after that, you can see that the market, to some extent, has started doing some sort of a trend. Although this one is an extended move, but the nearest scenario is definitely here. So that tells you that within this region right here, we're in a trend, regardless of whether we were in an upward sort of a trend or channel somewhere within here, got into some sort of a range. It's basically based on where the price is and what recently has been happening. So you always want to keep up with what's trending. So I hope that answers your question, but I can't see that Mitch also put in a lot of jargon in his answer right there. So I hope that sorts you out, Caroline. So I guess that's pretty much it from us. Not really seeing any more questions, which is okay. So I guess everything else is perfectly clear. But remember, our contact details there on the chat box. In case you want to hit us up, then feel free to do so. So remember, the AMP for August is about to begin. I think it will be beginning on the 19th or thereabout. So if you want to jump in on that, also make sure that you do. You can find that information on our website. But I think also on the chat box, maybe Mitch can also put that information there. For the guys watching us on the socials, there should be a link in the video descriptions that should take you to that link. But also if you visit our website, www.afriforex.com, then you definitely should find that information as well. So I guess with that, we'll see you guys tomorrow. Make sure that you're safe on the charts. There's a lot of uncertainty that's going on with the charts. Personally, I'm trading with a lot of caution, especially considering the fact that we do have a recession that's imminent. Things are hitting limits either to the upside, to the downside. We're seeing a lot of strength on the yen and the Swiss franc, which indicates they could be getting fear-based. For the guys who trade Bitcoin, things have not really been going the best. I think yesterday, price did actually end up going to a low. I don't know if it was yesterday or Friday. I don't really follow much on that, but generally, you did see the chart, and the market has come down quite fast. So interesting times we're living in, but just make sure that you're safe out there on the charts. Make sure that your risk is always in check. So I guess we'll see you guys tomorrow. So with that, happy trading and bye for now. May the peeps be with you. God bless.